a second to remember Harold Hogue, who sadly we lost this week, longtime custodian, beloved from HC Storm School. Thank you. Kathy, could you please call the roll?
Gaspar.
Here.
Blakely.
Here.
Dryden.
Here.
Gaspar.
Here.
Locke. Lowe.
Present.
Drummond.
Here. And Mr. Lowe's going to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry, we're just taking a moment to enjoy the artwork behind us. Dr. Hitchens, are there any items to be added or removed to the agenda tonight?
There are not.
Awesome, then I am so excited to start with our celebrations. First, I would like to invite Mr. Dennis Piron forward.
Okay, thank you. Good evening for those of you who don't know me. I'm Dennis Piron. I'm the head football coach and track coach, incubator, business entrepreneurship teacher, and still a little bit of math teacher at Batavia High School. And tonight, we're kind of flipping the script here a little bit. We aren't here to be honored. That's not why we came here tonight. Frankly, we've run the gamut of all those shenanigans. We're here instead to, honestly, to thank you. And so our players have a couple things that they would like to say, and we'd like to really, frankly, honor you this evening for letting us play this game that we get to play. So, Michael?
So just like what he said, we're here tonight not for recognition, but to recognize you, the BPS 101 Board of Education, for the volunteer work you do for the kids in Batavia.
We want to thank all of you for all of your support of co-curricular activities and our over 900 student athletes at Batavia High School, and for making some very hard decisions that help all to achieve at a very high level, including the recent approval of the turf field, facility improvements, and a new outdoor track.
Many of your curricular and program decisions are helping all of our student athletes become the very best in the state of Illinois, and we are grateful for programs like Excel PE that not only better prepare us to compete, but also give us valuable time at night for homework and studying.
We know your job is not easy and that you volunteer all of your time for the benefit of the students and community. But let us tell you that it is worth it. We are one example of the time you put in, and most of the great town of Batavia acknowledges it.
As a student athlete at BHS, we are proud to perform for a community and administration that is filled with such pride and commitment, just like we and our coaches are. We are all now and into the future honored to be Batavia Bulldogs.
From our 11 academic all-state selections, as well as our entire program, we would like to say thank you for all you do for us.
Our entire team would like to honor each of you with a Class 7A 2017 State Championship medal and team photo. Because it takes all of us working together, committed to the same culture, for unique moments like this to happen. All of our students at BHS to have opportunities to be the best it could be.
Thank you.
That's so awesome.
Thank you guys. This is really great.
Yeah, this is really awesome, but we don't want anyone to go anywhere yet. So we are so happy to see you guys here tonight. We thank you guys for coming out. We thank the coaches for coming out. And we want to recognize some student athletes. So not only did we win the IHSA state football championship, but we also have some students that have achieved exceptional academic success. And I have a whole list of you guys here. I have Jack Hafer. Jack is one of 3 National Football Foundation Scholar Athlete Award recipients in the Chicago area. The NFF's prestigious Scholar Athlete Award recognizes high school students for their outstanding individual academic achievements, athletic accomplishments, and community involvement. Jack will be honored by the NFF as well as NFL and college football players at Hallis Hall on February 19th. That's very exciting. Jack was also named a 2018-19 Illinois State Scholar, is a member of the National Honor Society, Social Studies National Honor Society, Spanish National Honor Society, and Science National Honor Society. Additionally, he is on the BHS baseball team and is an active member of Batavia High School's Key Club. Jack, can you give us a little wave out because you might not know him? Not the only amazing scholar in the room. We have 11 football players who also earned the IHSFCA Academic All-State 7A Award. To qualify for this honor, you must be a member of a varsity team, be selected as a first-team all-conference player, and have a cumulative GPA of 3.5 or better. So guys, we want a little wave out to you so we know which ones you are. Michael Bouch. We have Riley Cooper, who is also a 2018-19 Illinois State Scholar and a member of the National Honor Society. Riley. Nolan, and I'm sorry, Ike?
Yeah.
Michael Dancy. Jared Martin, who is also a member of the National Honor Society. Maxwell McFadden is also a 2018-19 Illinois State Scholar. Michael Nimick. Eric Peterson is also 2018-19 Illinois State Scholar. Colin Richter is also a 2018-19 Illinois State Scholar. Tom Settle. And I find this so impressive. The varsity football team's cumulative GPA is 3.51. Again, thank you, Dennis, Matt, entire football team for coming out tonight. We are super grateful to you. And we love a chance to cheer you guys on, and we appreciate all the hard work you've done. And we love the fact that you are hardworking scholars as well as good football players.
Will you all do us a favor? Thank you. And put your medals on.
I do have a comment.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody has realized that, but 2 championships in 5 years. Tina, Sulak, and myself, when we first ran for the first time in April and we got elected, that fall, you guys won. We just got elected again in April. Not saying anything, but I'm done after this term, so you guys got to find somebody else.
I mean, I think we worked really hard for these months.
I know.
Will you please take a photo with all of us with our mascot and the team trophy and those medals, please? Always wear when you go to Geneva for a meal, shopping, or just general showing off. Guys, come on up. We'll step in front, baby.
Do you want this?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
How about
You guys can do it. Yeah.
Everybody smiling behind me.
Yes, we're smiling.
Everybody look at my camera.
That's right here.
Look at Sue's.
I'm just looking at the camera person.
We're thinking like $1 million. Okay, I got it. Yeah.
We're good? Thank you.
I am unbelievably excited about this. I got my
No, you get to keep it. My son is perfect.
Put it right in front of me, no one else.
You can put it in Sue's spot.
Don't tell Sue there's a photo.
All right, thanks for having us.
Thank you, boy.
Should have been
Next time I'll talk. Brutus, you're busy. You'll be the first to know there's a movie coming out about Brutus, 30 for 30. It's true. Sam Dean's making it. And tonight the exclusive trailer is hitting Twitter tonight. So if you want to see the trailer for Brutus the documentary, 30 for 30, you can watch it.
Seriously?
You're the first to know.
Who's tweeting it?
You're the first one to be on the football Twitter account this evening. So just keep your eyes out. Cool.
Appreciate that.
It was beautiful. Thank you, Coach. Thank you, guys.
That's pretty cool. I love it. So that's how we grow them up. But now I have a chance to invite Cheryl Curry up to tell us about how the district's assistive devices are being used with our littlest learners in the district in the early childhood center. So we get both ends of the spectrum.
That's
tonight.
right. You've gotten from your biggest and brightest bulldogs to your ittiest, bittiest, littlest bulldogs. And I have the entire EC team and the students waiting outside. So as soon as I'm done, we're going to drive this place crazy. We're going to have so much fun. Well, thank you for having me. It's hard to follow such an awesome celebration like that, but I'll tell you what, we celebrate things every day. And the littlest things and the littlest guys are also worthy of celebration because they will one day be the kiddos who come here, you know, twice as tall as me and present as well. I wanted to share with you tonight early childhood, which I have the pleasure of being the assistant principal for, as well as Louise White and AGS. And one of the things when I knew tonight was my night to come that I wanted to showcase was this lady here, Jenny Barron, who is a speech language pathologist and is one of the most, if not the most, biggest advocates for augmentative and alternative devices. And that sounds like this big, thing, what is this? And so we wanted to break it down for you, and because we couldn't bring all the little guys here, we thought the best way to do this would be to showcase it through some videos. And Jenny and I worked together to put together a few videos of kiddos in the room using them. She's going to explain a little bit, because she couldn't be here tonight, what it is that you will be watching. But one of the things that I would like for you to think about as you're previewing this is what exactly the spectrum of needs are that in early childhood we use these type of devices for. I would like you to notice how Jenny, when she's working with some of these kiddos, you'll notice how when they express an emotion, she will verbalize or vocalize that emotion for them. And then you're also going to see some really cool before and after to showcase how kids who benefit from these devices and need these devices in order to communicate, number one, get excited about it. You can just see that joy coming out and being able to finally express themselves when they might not have ever been able to do that before. But also the progression that happens when a student becomes independent of an assistive device. So some super cool stuff happening here. Sit back, relax, enjoy. I know it's on both, and Sue is going to cue it up for me.
Hi, my name is Jenny Barron. I'm one of the speech and language pathologists in the early childhood program. In Batavia, in the early childhood program, we have around 130 students. Currently, around 10 to 12 students are called complex communicators. And in Batavia, they are fortunate enough to be given devices, assistive technology, augmentative and alternative communication techniques and strategies so that they can learn to better communicate. Many of these students are nonverbal or highly unintelligible, meaning that it's very difficult to understand what they're saying with their speech. I feel very fortunate to work in Batavia, an early childhood program, because of the access that our families and students have to this sort of support, technology, and assistance. Thank you so much for what you do, the part that you play to make this happen. Hi, Green Room team. How are you? Hey, I just wondered if you could tell us a little bit about why it's cool to have AAC devices in early childhood.
Well, I think for us in the green room, it's been awesome for students to use it to access communication skills and show us what they know. Because as a nonverbal student, we really don't know what information that they have. So they can show us through using their device, using the communication book, using the cord boards, or actually using photos to go grab off a wall and bring to an adult to request a specific item.
Cool.
What I've really seen with those students that we have in the green room this year and actually in all the years is these devices and books and static boards has helped lower their frustration level, giving them a way to communicate when they're nonverbal and let us into their world and make them not be so frustrated at times.
I like the power it gives them. Give them the power to let us know what they want when nobody can get in there to find out what they really want, and they've never been able to do that. So it's very freeing for them.
Awesome, guys. Thanks so much for your time. Get back to work. All right.
Good morning, Gustus and Gators. Happy Thursday morning, everyone. I have some guests from Mr. Wyatt's class this morning.
Macy Masick, Adam Cobbs, Jack Henderson.
And we have a special guest, Connor Dunn from Early Childhood. And Connor is going to lead us in the pledge this morning using his communication device. All right, Connor, are you ready?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is the same student.
Now I know my ABCs, that's how you say with things. That's it.
So one of the things that is cool that you heard in there was something called voice banking, where there is a great number of words in one, like the Pledge of Allegiance. And then you also notice that when the device was speaking for Connor, it was in a voice that was developmentally appropriate, a child of 3 or 4 years old, so that it mimics that age pretty closely. So I wanted to invite a moment of questions. If you had any questions, and Carrie and Lisa can help me answer those questions because I'm by no means an expert and don't pretend to be.
Do the students have these devices available for them when to go home with them, or is there some kind of usage that they can use at home so they have a better understanding of it?
That's an excellent question. Any kind of device that is used at school is partnered with home because you want that transfer to come over. They work together very closely. You guys might be able to answer whether or not they actually take the device home or whether they leave it at school or if there's a separate one at home.
It's their voice, so it goes with them wherever they are.
It's a good way to put it.
We often invite parents in to come in during therapy sessions so they get training as well, so they know how to support the student at home when they get to a point of frustration, because the more that voice is used and reinforced, the more often the child is excited and sees the power behind. And the behaviors are very much decreased at that point in the home and in the school setting.
Remind me where funding came from.
So, go ahead. Yeah, I was just going to say it comes. It comes through IDEA, through grants. That IDEA provides for students when the team comes together and determines whether or not a student needs a specific device.
An idea is?
Sorry, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA.
How many students have it? Are using them?
What did Jenny say? I think she said
10 to 12.
10 to 12 out of about 130 students.
And that's just at the Early Childhood Center. But in every building, we have complex communicators. In our K2 and 3-5 classroom at Grace McLean, about 50% of the kids use a device to speak.
Is that something that they may always use a device to speak, or is it a mixed bag of whatever that particular student needs?
It depends on the student. So if you saw with Connor at the beginning of this year, for example, there was no verbalizations at all. But the great thing about the device is it's paired with speech therapy. So a lot of the students begin to learn to use more vocalizations along the way. Some will be able to abandon their device at some point, but many of them, it becomes just part of what they need into adulthood. I think as a district, we realized it used to be something that we didn't push very much. When I was a special ed teacher, it was like, oh, I understand him, we're good. And then the kids would get to the high school or adult services and no one understood a word they said. So now we're really trying to promote it more at early childhood and elementary level. So when they get to high school, it just becomes a natural part of their communication, just like we're talking right now.
How long has this program been going on? As in, what is the oldest student that we have that started in the early childhood?
In his 30s.
I mean, using these devices. So obviously 30 years ago, we didn't have
We had different types of devices. Believe it or not, back in the day, we had just little devices that would just say yes, no, the basic devices, but the more complex devices, high school age students that have them, for sure. Yeah.
Very cool.
The development of iOS and apps, there is just a multitude of different tools available that kids have access to on the devices. So that has just exploded the options for them.
Does every child that needs one have one?
In our district, yes.
What's the cost for one of those?
It depends. So some students have an iPad with just apps.
Okay.
So that could be closer to $500 with the apps. Some students that have more significant autism may need a device that costs more, like $9,000.
Oh, wow, okay.
And they're basically lended to the family by the district, and we have insurance policies and everything placed on them. And then over time, we replace them, we keep them, and then when the student ages out, which in the state of Illinois is 22, sometimes we donate it to the family. That's not something that we could use for another student, or sometimes we work with the family to purchase it from the district, depending on the type of device.
Thank you.
The early childhood has always been really awesome about inviting board members there. And I know Tina and I have in the past, I haven't been able to go for a couple of years, but if you ever have a chance, go spend a half a day there. I would say spend a whole day there, but it's exhausting. It's amazing. But it is so fun. So if you ever get a chance, I'm highly plugging going to visit and seeing what they do every day. And plugging the ECCI, I'm a huge fan.
They're wonderful, and they will welcome you anytime you come in. They truly are a wonderful team. So the green room, they kept referencing the green room, and the green room are our most high school students. And so it's a self-contained, for the most part, program. There's some, push out in that into other classes, but that's why they chose to highlight the green room and staff, because of that. They use it a lot. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, next we're going to move on to public comments. I know a lot of them are our friends and staff tonight. I will just remind you, we ask that you try to keep your comments to about 3 minutes, because we have a lot of people that want to share their thoughts tonight. Anybody who wants to speak during public comments will fill out a pink sheet. I think we got everybody. Was there anybody else here who wanted to speak? All right, well then we will just start with Catherine Sweeney. And friend.
And friends. We did the math. There's 3 of us, we figured we could
Oh,
be
got you.
between 9 and
So I've got Catherine, Tanya, and Bridget.
Yes, I'm Catherine.
I'm Bridget.
Tanya.
Hi. Thank you for having us tonight. The issue that we wanted to talk about were some supports in science class. So, to begin, you guys, as spring comes along, you guys are going to be thinking about budget and where you want to allocate your resources. So we were hoping you would keep us in mind as you guys are thinking about these resources. And so we wanted to talk specifically about 3 different things with our special education students and the supports that they need in science class. So we have the general population of students, and then we have some, well, I guess I would divide them into a couple different categories. So we have a DO program where there's students that have a little bit more specific behavioral needs, and then we have an essentials program, and those are students who have more academic needs. And oftentimes that's below the 8th grade level. They're in self-contained classes, and they're smaller class sizes. So these students sometimes are at the 2nd and 3rd grade level for math, language arts. And so then when it comes to science, there is no self-contained science classroom for like essential science. And of all of the core classes, math, science, social studies, language arts, the DO students often get pushed in most often to science class. So we have a very diverse group of students in our classrooms. So we have lots of different needs. So these students, whatever needs that they may have in their other classes that may be co-taught, maybe smaller class numbers, more supports, they still have those needs in our classrooms. And we want to make sure that we're doing the best that we can to support them and meet their needs. And so for me specifically, I'll be talking about testing accommodations. A lot of their IEPs offer read aloud or smaller setting, like an alternate location, modified accommodated type stuff. And we have, there's 5 teachers in 8th grade science. We have no paras at all in the 2nd hour. We have 1 in 3rd hour. We do have more than 1 8th hour, and 9th hour we have 1. So when it comes to reading the test aloud, we have multiple versions depending on the level of the student, and we have 1 adult to read all the versions to anybody who gets to read aloud. So that makes it very difficult for her, and then the students still have to hear the different versions of the test. So if we could have more than 1 adult, that would be something that would be helpful. We've tried different things like Google Snap and Read, Google Snap and Read, but then the students, a lot of students prefer paper tests. But those students then will open up their computer and they'll listen to it, and then they feel a little uncomfortable that they're the only one in the room listening, and sometimes they would rather not have that resource, and so they didn't have to look different from the other students. We've also tried it where we pre-record our voices, so it's their own teacher, but again, students prefer not to look different. So we want to offer them what we can to make them feel comfortable and have those modifications that they need in a good environment. So anything you could do to offer more supports and make them comfortable as they're taking their tests would be much appreciated.
Yeah, and we came here because we are willing to problem solve and be flexible. I've been teaching in the district for 4 years, and each of the 4 years, essentials and co-taught science has evolved. So my first year, there was an essential science program, so students didn't push out. They were in the same room pretty much all day for language arts, social studies, ELA, and math. Then my second year, I had a co-teacher, which was a really awesome experience. She got to come into my classroom for an entire period. I had about 11 essential students in my classroom, and we were able to co-teach, do groupings and a bunch of different activities. Last year, they decided to spread out the essential students. So Catherine and I each had an amount of essential students, and my co-teacher flipped and flopped between Catherine and I. So she was bouncing back and forth during the class period. And then this year, large 8th grade class, they split the students between the 3 of us, and now we have a new essentials teacher, Peter Masters, and he has a 20-minute consult between the 3 classrooms each day. So we talk in PLC a lot and work closely together, and we work a lot with our admin because we're fortunate to feel that we have that open communication. But we're trying to think ahead for next year, and we're noticing that having 20 minutes spread out between the 3 of us each day seems to put a strain on students and then also on us as teachers. Because whereas math and ELA are leveled, and there's math 1, math 2, math 3, and ELA regular and honors and essentials, in science there's only science. And while we love having these students in there, sometimes it can be overwhelming for even the students. I know I have a couple of sensory students that being in a classroom all day with 10 students and then going into our classrooms where we're at like 30 students is a lot, and by nature, science is unstructured. So we're doing physics, we're doing chemistry, they're out of their seats, and there's a lot of independent time. So when there's not that extra set of hands, some of these students seem to get lost in the shuffle. So we're just looking to start thinking for next year and kind of be proactive in how we can better meet their needs.
And we all three are from 8th grade, but we did talk to all the 6th and 7th grade teachers also. And, you know, we're not, it has to be one way or the other. Like co-taught could be one good option, essentials could, the science could be another one. But a lot of teachers that have done a co-taught science class have had great response from it. And they're like, I wish I could have that back again. I wish it was more than just that 20 minutes that I have the special education teacher in the room. So lots of good options that we could do to help make it a little bit better.
And I think the main thing, like they've already stated, we wanted to ensure the success of our students. I just got so excited seeing the students up here today. That group, along with Justin, is a group when I started 16 years ago that I taught. So to see those students being successful really makes me feel good. And we want to continue that success. It has been more challenging with the behavioral needs, especially in science class, because you have a little bit more challenges. We're dealing with labs, fire, chemicals, and yeah. So it's a little bit more unstructured. So those same needs that are being supported in other classes, they need to be even more so supported in the science class because it is a safety issue. So again, we want you to consider, you know, as you are making your plans, how can we help each other here? Thank you. Thank you.
Next, I would like to invite Counselor Sherry.
My assistant colleague, Megan Newman, is going to hand you just a little snapshot of what we're going to talk about tonight, so you can remember our ask and our commitment to our students. So first of all, I'm Colleen Perry. I teach 3rd grade at Louise White School. I have very excitedly worked in Batavia for 14 years and loved every minute of it. And I want to thank you for your time tonight. We don't want to take a lot of it because we know it's precious. We have kind of an important ask, though, which is why we sought your attention. And we know that budget meetings are coming up for next year, and we were hoping that as you're making some of those decisions, you would consider putting staffing as a priority. We'd like to share with you why we think that the more qualified adults we can have working directly with our kids is really the best investment we can make in our district and in our community. We wanted to share a few examples of how that would affect us at Louise White School. I'm going to share a few stories with you of some of our students. All names have been changed. I wanted to share how we think this would affect us in a really positive way. First, we have Keith. He is a primary student. He loves reading. He loves playing with his friends, like almost every student that we know. He does need a little extra support with his classroom functioning. He has a case manager who helps him in this area. Unfortunately, because of some overloaded schedules this year with our special ed team, Keith experienced 6 different schedule changes within the first 8 weeks of school, which made it really difficult for him, especially if classroom functioning is something that he's working on. And so he also had services from several different teachers as they were trying to figure out what schedule would work best. His team met this year and identified some new priorities, so he's going to require some additional minutes. We would love for a budget that allowed us additional staff within our special ed department so that we can help Keith and others with IEPs really maximize their learning. We want to be able to provide a reliable schedule for those students so that they really feel comfortable taking risks to grow. We also have Tia, a 3rd grader, who has aspirations to save the world one day by becoming a veterinarian. And she's moved several times in her short school career. She has never really connected with an adult in any of her schools. She really feels kind of defensive around teachers, like she has to prove herself. She desperately wants friendships. She's not really sure how to go about forming them. She really senses this disconnect and isn't sure how to fix it, which really increases the distance between her and her peers. So there are so many kids like Tia who would benefit and do benefit from getting their social emotional needs met through intervention groups. We would really love to be able to add some staffing support to do that in an even bigger way. Classrooms can be really busy. Hers had 27 students in it, has 27 students in it. And we really want to be able to move kids forward, like Tia, in their social emotional growth as well as their academic growth. Our 4th grade in our school has 58 students. They're currently in 2 classes, but they didn't start that way. In 2nd grade, they were able to have 2.5, and then it grew to 3 sections. And the celebration for us was that 100% of them met their math growth targets, 100% of them met their SLO growth targets. As you know, as they move up in grade levels, the sections reduce, the numbers get a little higher. We don't see as much growth. In 3rd grade last year, I believe less than 80 made their math growth targets and about 72% met their SLO targets. As 4th graders, their winter math test data shows about 75% are meeting in reading, 46 in math. So we can see that as the class size gets larger, it's really hard for them to get the attention they deserve. District averages don't always paint a clear picture of a class's needs, and we would really like to be partners with you in brainstorming how we can be the most helpful to our kids using our resources in a responsible way. So we wanted to come to you asking that you keep these things in mind as you make budgeting decisions. And like I said, we're willing to sit at the table and brainstorm and problem solve at any point, and we just really appreciate your attention and your time and your consideration. Thank you.
I'd like to invite Monica Hubble.
Hello, everybody. I came across just happened to have it in my folder, I don't know why, a vision statement and for the district. And, you know, I'm looking at this and I could honestly say as a teacher there isn't one in Rotolo or this district that wouldn't agree with being committed to student learning, being committed to collaboration and continuous improvement. So I'm glad we're all on the same vision page, and I want to be on the same page with support in the classroom as well. This is my 16th year at Rotolo. It's my 26th year teaching. I've taught in 3 other districts, in Canada on a Fulbright, so I've seen public education from a couple of different perspectives. I've had numerous principals, so I've seen management styles as well, many different management styles. Many veteran teachers like myself have colleagues in other districts, and we know what's happening there. It's kind of the same thing that's happening here. We listen to our friends, we read the news. I have a 2017 article from the USA Today that just talks about teachers' mental health declining amid job stress. This is a common conversation I have with colleagues when I'm out. I've taught kindergarten through 8th grade. I've done computers and exploratory classes at Rotolo. I've done 6th grade math, ELA, science, and currently I teach social studies. I'm excited to see where the future will take our students. I feel lucky to teach in Batavia with the huge parent support that we have a very active community partnering with our schools when we're called upon. Fermilab's been to my classroom. The Kane County Forest Preserve has been there as well. The mayor's come in. I feel my personal journey teaching here has brought me incredible opportunities that I probably couldn't do anywhere else. I know the district values individualized learning as part of their vision as well. And having small groups and student-led learning happens a lot, whether it's called personalized learning or grouping or tracking. Batavia is known as a place where kids can get what they need and succeed here. The expectation for meeting academic goals become harder to meet when we have larger class sizes, as already said. This year my largest class size is 28. I have 5 IEPs, 504s in there. I've had as large as 34. I'm fortunate to have a parapro in my classroom to help with some of the behavior issues here or there, but it does make independent learning more challenging without the full support I need in the classroom. Some of these students with IEPs have one-on-one aides in 5th grade and then come to 6th grade and they might have one parapro for 5. And it's a balancing, it's an independence thing, I get that. It does also have its challenges when they're used to that one-on-one aid. Most of the students with special services go into a co-taught math, as said before, or a co-taught ELA, and then they come to science or social studies, and even some exploratory classes without a co-teacher. That co-teacher is trained in the social and emotional needs of those students. I value having their input, and I desired to see a co-taught social studies class. Some of these behaviors that don't just affect the students themselves, but the other students in the classroom as well. Smaller class sizes and adequate proper support needs to be in place as we, the district, and I am committing to meeting the needs of all students. As you make the tough decisions about allocating your money with the budget, please consider increasing staffing where it's needed. I have a feeling if you will achieve greater student impact when you do that. You all have a hard decision to make. Thanks for investing your time and being on the board. I appreciate it. And I hope to see all of you at the Ancient Civilization Museum night coming up again in the spring.
Just invite Jenna McKnight.
Hi, how are you guys tonight? Good. Hi, I'm Jenna McKnight. Some of you may know me. I was a student here. I now live here. And I teach at Rotolo Middle School. I'm one of the art teachers there. I'm in the middle of my 10th year, which is pretty crazy. I have a student who's teaching with me now. It's just weird. Anyways, over the years, we've seen lots of increase in our social and emotional needs of our children. And it doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon. We as a district have made great strides in addressing this over the past 2 years. I am excited to see this, and I love to know that this is a priority. As we navigate these waters, we also need to be aware of how this is affecting our classes as a whole. With the increase of specialized or individualized learning and our larger class sizes, it is very difficult to reach everyone. Personally, I'm going to tell you a little story, so bear with me. Personally, I have an 8th grade class that has 10 IEP students, and 2 of those students have a para with them. Those 2 students are 6th grade students in my advanced 8th grade art class. They have no prior knowledge, so the material I cover goes right over their head. But we continue to ask them to succeed while we set them up for failure. Because I want those students to be successful, I create completely different curriculum for each of them. In the same class, I also have another student with high anxiety who doesn't want to do the project the rest of the class is doing, so I'm creating new curriculum for her also. Altogether, I'm teaching 4 different curriculums with 2 different grade levels. Not only is this a challenge in itself, but it's also stressful for me. These students have high social emotional needs, so they need more than just academic instruction from me. The 2 6th graders don't socially, emotionally, or academically fit into my class, but this is not their fault, it is not my fault, and it's not their special education teacher's fault. They've been put in this situation where they can't really win. All right, so what's my point, right? Yeah, try not to complain. My point is that I want with everything to not only reach every student that walks into my door, but I also want to do what's best for them. I love, love, love having all of those students come into my classroom. So if that means for creating 4 different curriculums, I need to create 4 different curriculums, then I'll do that. I'm asking you as a board to look into class size to make class size and class makeup in order for the whole child's needs to be met. Bigger classes with high social, emotional, and academic needs means that I can't meet all of their needs. I am constantly having to stop helping a student to go and address the behavior needs of another student. I also ask that we take a look at individualized learning. I know there's some work that is currently being done to define what it exactly is so that we all have a better understanding. I just want to make sure that every stakeholder has a voice in it. I'm currently struggling with only 4 curriculums in my room. I can't imagine having 25 to 30 different art projects going on. We, as a district, will we offer professional development and continuing support for our teachers instead of just telling them to figure it out? How about support for our students and our parents as they transition into a new world of learning, because that's the way we're going. Since we are embarking on a new journey at BPS, they're offering more support for social emotional needs and individualizing instruction. I ask that we look at our resources to see how we can better allocate or use them. I'm not here to complain about my classroom or about the students that are in my classroom. In fact, I love my room. My room is a place where students feel safe. They actually want to take my courses, and they have success in my room. In some cases, my room is the only place that they are successful during the day because it's not super academically based, it's more creative. I'm only here to inform you of what's going on. I absolutely love what I do and I love what the students I teach. I'm fortunate to do what I do. I guarantee every teacher that works in this district will say the exact same thing. All we want is what is best for each one of our students. We care so very, very much That's why we come and talk to you about class size, co-taught classes, overworked social workers and counselors, allocating funds correctly with all of the other things. Because my story that I just told you is not uncommon or unusual. And I want to sincerely extend an invitation for you to come and observe this specific class. If you are interested, you can write this down. So if you want to grab your pen, get ready. If you are interested, please come to my room, 015 at RMS from 12:11 to 12:50. I would love to hear feedback from you if there's anything that I can do to improve my craft or my classroom at this point in time, since I am struggling. That's all for tonight, but I want to thank you sincerely for everything you do and for everything that you do to support not only me, but our students and all the other staff in our district.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone who spoke tonight. Now we're going to move on to our partners. So I'd like to invite Amy and Carey, the BEA president.
I might sit, so I know everyone will sit. I do want to start by thanking all of the people that came out to speak. We actually have been talking a lot in our BEA meetings about staffing levels and the support for our social and emotional needs of our students, and I know that that has been something that I've been talking about at these meetings for several years, and I know it's something that people are working on, and we do a lot of creative problem solving around it. So when we speak in executive board and the same issues come up over and over, when it does come down to, we all know that we don't have unlimited budgets, and we know that there's like no getting around the state of our finances. But within what we have, I did invite people to come out and tell their stories, and different schools signed up for the next 3. So there's going to be, or the next 2 board meetings after this, so you'll get a variety of people's experiences. But since it's such a big, important theme, and it's something that we feel so strongly about, I encourage people to tell their stories so that you as a board could think about that when you do decide on the staffing plan and think about priorities, because most of the issues that come up with us are about supporting kids who have higher needs, and with both the academic and social emotional needs of our kids, we want to make sure that we're really doing the best job for them. So I do appreciate everybody who came out and spoke, everybody who came out and supported the people who are speaking, and if people who work all day doing what's best for kids feel strongly enough for coming out, I just think that's like a really heartening thing. So, and I appreciate all of you for listening. So thank you very much. I do have a couple of things. One is a huge shout out, speaking of social emotional learning, to our Student Services Committee. They have done such a phenomenal job planning out our in-service on February 16th for the district on ACEs and resiliency and social emotional learning, and the county-wide Kane County's Institute on March 2nd. And I wanted to let you know, because this is a celebration for us, that IEA is going to be sending a film crew out again. They're making a movie of all of the great work that we're doing around resiliency and social emotional learning that they are going to show at our representative assembly and then on all their media as this sort of shining light of how it can be. And I think that's wonderful. So I want to thank the people who are working on that. I know Jenna's one of the members of the community, and there are a lot of other people there as well. So that's exciting stuff. A couple of other just announcements. Trivia Night is February 24th. BEA is hosting this for the first time. We are raising money for our 2 student scholarships. One is for our education scholarship, and the other is focused on career and technical education. So any money that we raised that night will be going to those two and split evenly between them. We would encourage you. I heard a rumor from Sulak, who's not here, that there might be a board table.
There's for sure a board table, we're just not sure there could be two board tables.
Yay, and I'm hoping that there's admin tables, and we're really excited about it. So we're hoping that it's a success, and it'll be a lot of fun either way. Let's see, there are a couple of notes on the IEA and NEA level. So the IEA did make a recommendation after, I think I talked last month about the recommendation hearings for the governor's race. They did recommend Pritzker for a candidate in the primary for governor. The process, though, just in case you don't know it or the audience doesn't know it, they do have members of the IEA who send out questionnaires to all of the candidates. The candidates have to fill out the questionnaires, and if they fill out the questionnaires, they can come for an in-person meeting. Then they're interviewed, and the team that does the legislative recommendations meets and discusses the pros and cons and how well they support educational issues. It's never decided by party affiliation. It's always decided upon by their track record and their stances on public education issues. So anyway, that's that. And then on the NEA level, you probably know this already, with the government shutdown deal, they did decide to reauthorize the CHIP program for the next 6 years, which we have been advocating for a long time, because 250,000 children just in Illinois alone were dependent on CHIP for health insurance, and I think it's 9 million across the country. We're hoping that there will be a Clean Dream Act passed for the students with a path for citizenship, but that's something that obviously is still being debated. And then lastly, I just wanted to give you all a heads up. I will be going to Washington, D.C. the first week in February to lobby our Congress people on educational issues. And I'm really excited to announce this. On March 17th, I will be co-presenting at the National Leadership Summit on creating safe spaces for some of our most vulnerable students, our transgender and gender expansive students. And I'm really excited about this part of it. I'm co-presenting with a student activist who's a college student out in Naperville right now. So I feel like that has such a connection to the SEL and the ACEs and resiliency work that we're doing. I really do appreciate your support, and that as a board you are very good about listening and hearing what people are saying. So I appreciate that. There's a lot going on. Thanks for your time, and have a good night.
Thanks, Amy. Next we are going to hear from our student ambassadors.
Yeah, so first I want to give a huge congratulations to the dance team for the sectionals. And we also want to wish them good luck this Friday and Saturday, because they are competing in the state championship, so that's really exciting. We also want to wish good luck to the Wind Symphony, because they are performing at the IMEA State Conference on Friday. And we also want to recognize the Key Club. Not only did they put on an awesome Mr. Beach show, but they also raised over $10,000 for to benefit the Neuroscience Research Foundation. So that's amazing.
Yeah, and then the basketball team, they have their Night of Hoops, which is this Saturday on January 27th, and they're trying to draw a big crowd for that, so if you don't have anything going on, head over to the high school. And then we also had incoming freshman night after break, so we had tons of students and parents out at BHS, and I don't know if I mentioned this before, but Link Crew was kind of taking over that whole process with Mrs. Thomas. So the Link Crew commissioners gave a good presentation in the lunchroom, which I think was cool because the students and the parents are separate, so it's kind of giving them a taste of what high school is going to be like on your own, individualized. And then after that, they headed over to the club and activity fair, which was awesome in the field house because everybody came and set up their tables. Overall, I think it was a pretty big success, and I think that they had a good time. And then also this week at the high school is Yellow Ribbon Week, which, like I told you, that's also, that's being taken over by our principal student advisory team. So all week, last week we had Interact Club make posters, and we hung those up all over the building. And then we also have a table outside of the cafeteria that kids see every day before they walk into lunch with a big banner kind of stating all about Yellow Ribbon Week and just the little things that we want them to know. And then we're also handing out free stickers to everybody to put on their Chromebooks just to spread the word and conversation. And that has like the suicide prevention phone number and the big yellow ribbon on there. So we've been handing them out the past 2 days, and that will continue Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of this week.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Good luck on it.
All right, our last, under this section would be committee reports from board members. Do we have any committee reports from board members? I actually do have a committee report because we just had our inaugural meeting for the Facilities Commission last Tuesday the 16th. And so we talked about why the committee was being formed. We talked about the charge for the committee and that the charge was going to be to develop a long-term master facilities plan for 2021 to 2026 and beyond there. We drafted a charter to guide our work, and then over the next few months we're going to be doing a lot of educating. We'll be visiting some different buildings, we'll be talking about district finances, we'll be looking at enrollment projections, instructional programs, and our current capital projects. So shout out to the members who stepped up to volunteer, because it was a really amazing group of people who really passionate about Batavia, which is awesome, and really excited to be members of that community that are going to be looking at our long-term future. So it was a really, really nice first meeting. And we meet again in February. All right, so those are all of our public comments, partners, friends. The next item on our agenda is our consent agenda, which is our opportunity to combine all of our routine business votes under one item. So I'm going to hand that over to Mr. Pierce.
All right, 5.1 and 5.2 is the approval of the regular and closed session minutes from December 19th of 2017. 5.3 is the always exciting personnel report. 5.4 are payrolls and bills for the month. 5.5 is the destruction of our closed session minutes from June 21 and July 19th of 2016. We had 3 large donations this month. A large donation for special swings for some of our students at Grace McWayne from the Grace McWayne PTO. Austin Mefford donated $500 for a Lego wall at AGS, and a $1,619 donation from Steve Mefford from Lightspeed Technology for large portable or speakers for large spaces at Batavia High School. 5.7 is the annual support contract from Power School. And then lastly, 5.8 is the approval of the consent agenda.
All right, so are there any items on that agenda for removal, further clarification, or questions? Apparently we've just been billed into submission.
Yeah.
We've been listening, we're like ready to, all right, well then I'm going to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
Okay, was that, I'm sorry. Who was?
John.
John. All right, moved by Dryden, second by Lowe. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Baby Brock.
Yes.
Ridley.
Yes.
Dremel.
Yes.
Dryden.
Yes.
Gaspar.
Yes.
Lowe.
Yes.
All right, the next item on our agenda is our various reports. So we are going to start with the FOIA request. Dr. Hitchens.
Those are, the first 2 reports are monthly reports that we bring to. Any FOIA requests we've replied to in the last month, as well as the treasurer reports, and this is the opportunity if you had any questions about either of those.
All right, then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Newkirk for Student Services Annual Report.
Sure, I'm going to invite Lisa Palisi and Carrie Rue to come up to the table. This is an annual report in the board's monitoring of our programs. So this report you see is a highlight of some of the work that the Student Services team is doing. They're going to give you just some brief highlights on some things that are going right, and then some things that they're also working on. And if you have any questions, they can be sure to take questions. Lisa.
I'm going to be honest, it's a little hard after that opening of all the teachers expressing their concerns about not feeling supported in their buildings or the SEL needs across the district. I do think that we should have a new rule that if you start out a meeting sharing concerns, you should stay to hear about the things that we're doing about the concerns, and I'm sure you would agree.
I think that's great. They said they should. Yep.
I think that should be a rule, because what we wanted to talk about tonight was all the things that we're doing to address these things, because it is a big deal. We do have a lot of students in our district that are struggling. Carrie has done this outstanding, amazing job from early child to elementary to reach our littlest students that we heard about, and we talk every single day about students in need. Over the past 2 weeks, I've worked personally with 3 separate families of elementary students that they will not come to school because they have so much anxiety and they have so many specific needs. So I've worked with them to set up outside counseling, to work with a homebound tutor, to gradually introduce them to school, to meet with their families, to bring in specialists, provide specialized scheduling, work with the school teams to support the students. And these are things that we do on a regular daily basis to work individually with our families. And we don't need credit for that. It's not about that at all. But I do want to say that we do see it. We do see the needs. And it isn't about adding more staff. It's never been about adding more staff. When you look at the middle school and the high school, I was a middle school teacher. Those are my friends that were speaking here tonight. I too am really concerned about middle school students. Tina and I have spoken about middle school. I too am very concerned about middle school students. But what people don't understand is we have the same number of special education teachers and the same number of paraprofessionals at the middle school of 1,400 students as we do at the high school of almost 2,000. So we have the same number of people. And there's a lot of other obstacles that come into play. Louise White School is concerned about the number of special ed teachers. We have the same number of special ed teachers at Louise White as we do at Alice Gustafson School. We have the same number of special ed students at both buildings. But because both buildings do it in a little bit of different way, we're able to reach students in a different way. So a lot of these things are about structures and schedules and utilizing our best people. The Student Services Committee that Amy spoke of, she's absolutely right. It is an amazing thing that's happening for the first time in our district. It used to be a committee that was designed to have a couple of hours with Lisa Placey every couple of years to share just things they were concerned about, with no solutions, no ideas for making it better, just a place to vent. The BEA spoke up and administrators spoke up and said, let's work together to focus on SEL, so that's what we're doing. And we're realizing that we have a lot of work to do. The reason why kids at Rotolo are struggling is because they're not getting the social emotional supports that they need when they're in kindergarten, first, second, third, and fourth, and fifth grade. The fifth grade kids don't have 1-to-1 aids and then go to sixth grade and we make them have 5. That's just not true. The reality is at our elementary schools, our social workers spend 60% of their time teaching wellness curriculum, 25 minutes a week to students. That's the biggest waste of resources. That is not using our best people to do the most important job. That was set up so that everybody would have plan time. There's better ways to do that. And as a Student Services Committee, what we've been working at is how do we better reallocate the staff that we have to do a better job at meeting the needs of these kids. I know that we can't just keep adding more. I wish I had 5 Carries so that I could go home at 6 o'clock at night and not work on the weekend. It would be awesome because she's the best partner I've ever had. But I'm not going to ask for that. Instead, we work together on systems so that we can better support our students. So elementary, one example is we're looking and I'm working very hard with senior management team, and they've been so supportive of this, re-looking at the special schedules to make sure that our teachers aren't relying on social workers to make sure they have plan time. The teachers want the social workers to be social workers. They want them to be able to come into the classroom and coach and guide and support them. And you know what? The social workers actually want that too. They don't want to teach 20 minutes of wellness to every child in Batavia. I don't know that all of us need a social worker to work with us every week, but many of us need it much more than we're getting. So we are looking at that. The middle school, let's take a look at the schedule. Why can we do it? Why do we have co-taught science and co-taught social studies so easily at Batavia High School? Because we have a different schedule there. Because we work in blocks. So the same number of staff gives those kids exactly what they're saying they're missing. But we have to sit down and we have to work together on a way to reach these kids with what we have. We just can't, it's just like a house budget. I wish I had an in-ground pool in my backyard. I'm not getting one because I don't have it. I have $5 in my checking account. I just paid a college tuition. I'm not getting a pool, you know? So it's, you know, so I think we have to get together and we have to figure this out, but it's not about just saying we need more, we need more, we need more. We have to sit down and work together, and we have to tell our stories, but it can't just be about how tired and exhausted we are. It has to be about the 3 kids that we've been working with these past 2 weeks, who are a first grader who hasn't come to school in 6 weeks because she's throwing up and anxious and nervous about school. Yeah, I wish the social worker was more available to work with her, and she will be next year, because I'm not going to stand it if we don't do something about this. And our senior management team is right on board with that, and it doesn't require more people. It requires sitting down and getting rid of the way that we used to do things and thinking smarter about the way we schedule and support our students. Carrie's social worker is on this committee. They're reaching all the kids in early childhood. They didn't get a new social worker. They didn't get another extra teacher. Same amount of kids, same amount of staff, but they're reaching all of their needs because they're doing it in a more systematic way, and they work together with administration and the teachers to figure this out. So I can say, yay for our MAP test scores. I love this staff. I'm so supported in this district. There's so many wonderful things going on. I'm really worried about the social emotional needs of our kids, but we're doing something about it. We will by the end of this year probably spend $40,000 just in donations alone in bringing in specialized counselors to work with small groups of kids. No one does that. No, Geneva doesn't do that. St. Charles doesn't do that. Aurora doesn't do that. We do that. We do a lot of great things for our kids, but we have to keep working together to do this in the right way. And I feel like it's not about who works harder or who has the hardest group or any of that. It should be, let's sit down, be specific about what the needs are, and let's work on ways to support our kids. Did you want to add anything to that? Because I went off script a little bit.
I wouldn't add anything.
On page 2. So, do you have any questions about my board report?
Yeah, I do. I have
Okay.
a question.
Yes.
Because this has been the theme of the night, and
Yeah.
it's 8 o'clock. We haven't gotten, you know, we've had stories, and all right. So we've had several staff tell us that we have significant staffing issues at the middle school with special needs, elementary special needs. What I'm hearing you say is that this is not a staffing issue at the middle school at all, where we're dropping the balls in the elementary schools because we're misallocating resources, using social workers to teach wellness instead to offer plan time to teachers, and it's wrong. So are you suggesting, is what I'm hearing, that we figure out a different way to give elementary teachers plan time? Let the social workers do the work they're supposed to do. We're not going to have an issue at the middle school. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
No. I think the starting point is going back and really working with our students at the elementary level to make sure that they have the support to build that resilience and the skills that they need to feel more successful when they get to middle school. The other big piece of it is, at the middle school, we need to rethink the way that we're scheduling and servicing kids, because what's happening, in my belief, is the rigidity of a schedule is forcing us to have a special education teacher that has the same caseload as the caseloads at the high school, but can only reach the same amount of kids, so 7 students all day long for the entire year, because, for example, English at the middle school is a 60-minute class, so now that teacher is locked in supporting only 6 students. At the high school, that teacher can support 6 to 8 students for a whole block and then support a whole different 6 to 8 the second half of the year because of the way the schedule works. The middle school schedule really locks us into a place that we're not able to spread out our special education teachers to really meet the needs of the kids.
Are you suggesting that the middle school go to a block schedule?
I'm suggesting that they go to a different schedule. I don't know that it needs to be, I don't know, or nor do I think it needs to be exactly like the high school, but I think the reality is we either keep it exactly how it is and double the amount of staff, because that's what it would take to have science and social studies co-taught. So we could double the amount of special education staff, or we take another look at the schedule and say, how can we better utilize these people so that we can offer co-taught? The science teachers are right. Co-taught science is wonderful. It's very, very helpful to kids. It's a great thing, but it's literally impossible to do right now unless you say that we could hire, right now we have 12 special ed teachers. We would need probably 20 to make that happen. And I don't see that happening.
With the current schedule. So are the
Right, with the current
conversations,
schedule.
are those conversations happening? Do we see, I mean, I feel like you're having conversations about the elementary schedule. Are we having conversations about the middle school schedule? And is it feasible that we'll be able to make that shift?
The middle school administrative team has been working with staff members about different schedule revisions and different options for scheduling. Again, being at the middle school for 5 years, that's a very difficult conversation to have there. Because what's happening is we're wanting to protect the middle school model, which I personally believe in. I love the idea of teams, I love the idea of working together, I love the idea of kids knowing a smaller number of people. But where I think we're so locked and stuck on not making any change in that team approach that it quickly gets pushed aside as impossible. So I think there's a huge block right now happening.
So what needs to happen?
In your
To
opinion?
make that change?
I think they need to, I think it would help by first helping the middle school staff to understand that the high school doesn't have more. They don't have more special ed teachers and they don't have more paras. They have the exact same amount. And here's what they're able to offer because of the way that they've scheduled students. I think that's a starting point because honestly, somebody else pointed that out to me and I didn't believe it. I said, no, it's not the same. They have tons more. I think they have at least 3 more special ed teachers. I should know this because I am responsible for all those people. And I really thought that the high school had much more, and they do not.
Because your perception of the successes and the opportunities are so much greater that you assume that it has to be based on staffing. So then when you step back and actually looked at the numbers and you said, oh, wait a minute.
Yes.
So who's having these conversations? Lisa, you said that these conversations are being had. Who is having these conversations right now?
Brian, Natalie, our Assistant Director of Student Services, Jed Hicks, and teachers, but I'm not sure, school leadership team.
And so is the communication stopping at that point then? Because from my understanding, we're going to have 2 more months of a collection of educators explaining to us how difficult their situation is, and then the body count is the only way to fix it. If we could keep this other conversation going about that there's a way to modularly address this, I would much rather not have to, I mean, because they're sad conversations. I mean,
they are.
It's not only sad conversations, it's also,
they're asking us to fix a monetary issue.
and we
that
also,
might not
I mean,
even
this
fix
is
with
a,
money.
right, the staff also we just finished negotiations and we just signed a contract and I'm on the negotiations team and these were not issues brought up, but now that we're starting a new school year, all of a sudden these issues are being brought to our attention. That's a little disturbing that this is not.
Well, I'm wondering.
I don't understand where this is coming from.
Just in speaking to Brian, and he shared with me even tonight some of the great ideas that his leadership team has brought up as suggestions. I'd like to offer that perhaps Carrie and I, coming as representatives from the different levels, might help to kind of break that up just to see that there's other options out there. Because I think it's all, I really do think every person that came here tonight from the middle school are people that I know and respect. And they do care about the kids, and they are worried about them. But I think they can't get their heads around other options.
So are they going to their principal? Are they talking to who they need to be talking to before they present to the Board of Education?
That might not be a fair question to ask Lisa.
I don't know.
I'm just throwing it out there.
I think Tina and I are thinking along the same lines, and what I personally would love to say to you at the middle school, you guys have a lot of great ideas. You're brilliant people. Go home, fix your house, come back, tell us what you need. this is a board that will, always want to support that, but I think I think where Tina's going is this, we're feeling a little blindsided here.
This is never something that's happened before. There's definitely, I know there's committees, there's ways to, and actually, I have to say, I'm disappointed that they all left. That's really disappointing to me. They did not hear any feedback from the board. So they didn't stay to hear any of this. That's really disappointing. And if we have to go through this for 3 more meetings, I'm hoping they're encouraged to stay. But this is a little blindside right now, especially knowing that we finished negotiations, that we've been through this, that the board knows there's other channels to go through before you present to the board.
That a really ugly 5-year forecast.
And again, part of negotiations was the financial forecast. So there's anybody who was a part of that knows what we're looking at. We have been very transparent. So I'm really puzzled, disappointed at what is going on.
I have 2 questions. One is, are we in compliance with all the state rules and regulations or federals with regards to special ed or any kind of people with students with IEPs and 504s and et cetera?
Yes.
So that's okay. My second question is, it seems to me, I've been out 5 years, but it seems to me that it seems like more and more students are, and especially at the lower level, are coming in with more emotional and issues, and that's causing a main concern. So I'm just trying to figure out, is this is really something that we have to look at if it's scheduling at the middle school or the grade school? Something's got to be worked out. I mean, I'm all for the teams as long as the teams at the middle school can function as a team, but then how do we work in that social emotional, especially if we're getting more and more students this way? Why is that happening? I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of reasons anybody could pick. So one of the questions when I had my meeting with Lisa, I was just trying to figure out the numbers from one year to next year with number of IEPs and so on and so forth. Are we going to be going up, or are we trying to be steady? I don't know. Those are just a couple of things I just wanted to throw out just to make sure we're in compliance first.
Well, and I want to say also, because I am very passionate about the social emotional. We've talked on many occasions.
Yes.
I am a social worker. I would not like to spend 60% of my time teaching a curriculum and not meeting with clients. I would not like that. And your report that you did give the board is fabulous. And I'm a big, I think this board supports ALAP in both the high school and the middle school. And I wanted to just thank you because I do think that is great and it's working. But we do see a rise in social emotional, not just in schools, it's all over. It's a hot topic right now. And but I do not believe as a social worker that your classroom size has anything to do with your social emotional issues. They're going to be there. We have to figure out other ways to support.
Right, and I think one of the things that you'll see coming back from the committee is, that reallocation of really looking at the role of the social worker at the elementary level. That's one of our we have 4 great goals, and that's one of them. The other thing is adding in more of that embedded support. We have these amazing instructional coaches and tech coaches that have done so much to support our students. So one of the things I'm also looking at with our grant funds is bringing in that SEL coach that can be going into classrooms and helping teachers understand ways to set up their processes and set up their classrooms to help students feel very safe, to provide those structures.
And outside resources. Outside resources, that's their jobs. Let's bring them in.
Absolutely. We have a new one coming to JB Nelson starting next week to work with the student. So we have a lot of those things going on, and I also think that there's also a little bit of a miscommunication about the things that are happening. So I'm trying to figure out the best way, because everybody gets so many emails and so many newsletters, but at Bertolo, the ELA program is wonderful, but we also added a full-time resource teacher for general education student that focuses on executive functioning. We brought we increased our school psychologist from 0.5 to 1.0 this semester. We're expanding on our ED program for special education students. So there's a lot of things happening there, and I think it's more about the elementary teachers will often say, I have no idea. that was happening. And the high school teachers, I had no idea that was happening. So the best way to kind of get that out there, and I think those institute days that are focused on SEL are going to be very helpful because we could share what our goals are and kind of what's happening district-wide. And just going back to John, I don't know, perhaps the middle school will end up needing more support than they have, but I think it's impossible to make that decision with the current setup because it's in my opinion, so dysfunctional in the way that it's set up as ways to support the kids that I could throw more people at it, but I know that's not going to make a difference. We have to really look at that structure and then say, wow, even after we've done all of this, it really does look like we need more support, and here's why, and here's how it's going to be utilized.
What is our mechanism to look at the structure right now? Walk me through the steps. I know we've danced on it, but what is the procedure? What's the structure for that? Who are you going to work with?
The middle school has a school leadership team that is, the BEA elects people onto that team. There's a representative from every grade level, and there's a department is represented. And then they have a feedback structure in place where the people who are sitting in that meeting and talking about these very things, then their job is to go and get feedback from their group that they're representing and bring it back to the SLT. So everyone has a voice on the SLT, even if they're not sitting on the SLT.
And then as we move up the chain, I'm sure that the administration is involved at building level. I'm sure Brad's involved here. And I'm assuming these conversations are all happening and we're moving it forward in a constructive way, yes?
And that model is represented at the elementary school as well with the case managers. So we're talking with building administration about the needs and looking at the transition from early childhood to kindergarten as well as from 5th to 6th. So we have predictions of what student needs are going to be at each grade level.
Well, then I'm excited by the future when you all come back and give us the solution to how to fix this problem. Right? Thank you.
Thank you. You guys do an amazing job.
Yes.
I know that we have talked a lot about social emotional learning, and
We'll
I agree
continue.
to that. I think there are some people on this board that are extremely passionate. I am one of them. I think that we do amazing things. I've also seen firsthand what some other districts do, and they do not match us. And so I have a huge amount of pride, and I know that you came up and told us some very hard things and had to share some very hard things, but I do not want to send you off without us telling you that we think you're doing amazing things and that there are challenges, and that it's not lack of anything other than there's new challenges, and we have to be flexible and creative in how we're going to deal with them. And I think you guys are. I have so much faith in your leadership, and I think this whole board has a ton of faith in your leadership.
And you are doing a great job.
Thank you.
May I
Because
just
I
add
feel,
something really quick?
yeah.
I just want to say, it seems like we have the collaborative processes in place to address the issues that we have. And from everything that I've seen as a board member, it seems like we've really been striving over the last couple of years to really collaborate between all levels to accomplish a shared goal. And when we are not doing that, it just seems like it's mostly miscommunication. And I would highly encourage everybody who is concerned, if you have not been involved in a committee, to get involved in a committee, to go to the people who are representing you and make sure that they are aware of your needs and are addressing your needs. And then if the process is not working, then come to us. But it's very difficult for us because obviously we get a variety of feedback. We get specific concerns about a specific classroom, but then we hear that a TV or a video crew is coming out because we're doing such a great job in special education. It's a mixed bag, and from our perspective, it's very difficult for us to say, do this in this specific situation, and that's why we rely on the professionals at the administrative level and in the classroom to work together to help us make the decisions that we need to make. But we have to trust the system, and if you couldn't trust that system before, try again. Maybe you can trust it now, and if it doesn't work, then come back to us, because I think we're all very concerned, especially about social emotional learning, that our kids' needs are being met. And we want to make sure that we are doing what's best for our kids, but to do that, we need to go through the process. And sometimes that takes time, and sometimes that can be frustrating, but we need to take a deep breath and go through the process.
Well said.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, since this is so relevant, we're actually going to jump to the financial forecast. So Tony's going to share that.
We'll just flip
With
top the
us,
next
and we're
two.
gonna flip it. Because talking about meeting dates seems a
Better
little
flow.
innocuous. And we have
Try not to go off script. But that being said, we do rely very heavily on our systems of collaboration, and this financial report here that we're going to share with you, I have some visuals that I'll go through. When I cancel it, left, present, one button left.
Oh.
Is a product of that collaboration, and it's something that I'm excited about, in part because we get broader input on even the assumptions that we're making that we put into this forecast, and so this isn't something that I have done personally, although it has been the case in the past, but it is truly a product of input from broad base of stakeholders. Pardon?
I said I kind of wish you'd just keep doing it.
I know. I know, right? So this is a visual summary of the report that I provided to you in your board documents. I don't know if you've heard, but enrollment's declining. But, wait, what? Yeah, wait, what? Exactly. Our high was just about 6,300 students in 2012, and now we're at 5,900 students in the current fiscal year, which is 2018. And I think this graph is a little hard to read with the size of the font. I apologize for that, but you get the concept of where enrollment is going. It's declining at roughly about 2% per year. But there's some good news in the numbers. As a matter of fact, in the last couple of years, we've seen each of our cohorts increase with the exception of one. And what that means when I say cohort, I'm talking about first graders who become second graders and fifth graders who become sixth graders. That's a cohort. And each one of those cohorts throughout the system is growing, meaning we're accumulating with students. And the only way that can happen is if people are moving into town. So then the question is, well, why is enrollment declining? Well, it's actually a pretty simple answer. We're not manufacturing as many kids as we used to. The birth rate in King County is down significantly. It continues to fall, meaning that we can continue to anticipate that smaller kindergartens are going to enroll in our schools for at least the next 5 years. But people are moving to town, and I think the word is out that Batavia is the place to be. It truly is the best district to work for. Clearly, it's the best place to live. You know, I'm a little biased here, and the reason we have super dedicated professionals to making sure that kids have exactly what they need. And we have a community who stand behind us. And when we ask for more resources, they give it to us because they know that we're not asking for just because we want to. But this has important bearing on our financial forecast because enrollment obviously drives our staffing decisions and it also drives our financial resources. It's a critical component of our financial forecast and where we're going to be in the next 5 years. Staffing. We got a huge shot in the arm for funding in 2014 and 2015 as a result of the expiration of the outlet multi. Suffice to say, we went on a bit of a spending spree and we hired a lot of staff. And you can see that evidenced here in that giant pyramid of our staffing. Those are FTE, that's nearly 700 FTE that we had in 2014 and 2015. Now that enrollment's declining and our resources are limited in terms of growth, our expenditures were increasing rapidly and our revenues not so much, we've had to make some staffing reductions. The only way we've been able to keep our budget in the black, although it has been in the red, but the only way that we're able to keep it in the black is by reducing staff. We've been able to contain all other areas of our costs as they escalate. I'll get into that in a little bit more, but the only way we've really been able to do that is by reducing staff. Luckily, our enrollment's declining, so we are actually able to maintain the average class sizes that we are accustomed to. So, although it is the case, and it always has been the case, that there are some classes that are over averages or over our targets, and it will always be the case. On average, our class sizes are actually smaller than they were before we got that shocking arm from the outlet multi. So if somebody says our classes are bigger than they ever have been, it's just not true. Our classes are actually smaller than they've been, and the average is holding because we've been reducing staff in relation to our enrollment.
Just for perspective, the previous graph where you showed our population, the highest population was 2012, or is that 2013?
Yeah.
So 2013 is the first year.
Yeah.
So that would be the year that we increased staff. I'm assuming that 2012 we had even more students?
We did in 2012, but it doesn't necessarily follow in parity. A lot of the staff that we hired in 2014 and 2015 when we got the more finances were not necessarily classroom staff.
Well, right, and the only thing I was going to point out is that we had 631 staff members in 2012. We still have significantly more than that, but we have way less students. So for me,
The other thing I have to say about this graph that I lost when I imported it over to this visual, there's an asterisk in the actual report. And we changed how we count staff in this report, that we used to count heads, and now we count FTE. So there's a disparity. We started counting FTE in 2015 and beyond, and in 2014 and prior, it was heads. So there's a fundamental change in how we actually count. So that skews these numbers a bit, but it doesn't change the overall trend.
The ones before 2014 records that you inflated because we're counting a part-time person as a whole person.
Correct. Yeah. So I apologize, I should have included that.
But
So-
it's in the report.
It is in the report. Total revenues. And you can see, as I referenced earlier, the 2014 and 2015, you see that the double jump. You saw the revenues go up rather significantly in 2014 and continue in 2015. And that's because our levy, as you recall from our meeting in December, is spread over 2 fiscal years. And so when that outlet mall TIF expired, the revenues increased over a period of 2 fiscal years. After that, however, we're really feeling the effects of the Great Recession. We saw very low CPIs, less than 1% for multiple years. And that meant our revenue, our property tax growth, because that's what we have here in Batavia, as in most communities in the collar counties of Chicago. School districts are funded primarily by local property taxes. You open your tax bill, you see that, where they get the trough. And that's not a Batavia thing, that's just how it works in Illinois. But now that CPI has rebounded and is closer to 10-year averages, we're seeing that revenues are going to be about that 2% trend. It's going to be that way. It was that way in 2018. We expect it's going to be that way in 2019. We expect it's going to be that way in the years beyond. If inflation comes in higher, we might see more revenues. But if inflation comes in higher, we're going to see more expenditures too. So essentially, we're living off of the inflation of our property taxes. We don't expect any more out of the state of Illinois. There's no way that in the short term, if they're going to get their act together, they can actually send more money to a community like Batavia. That's probably a fact. But they did change their funding formula this year, where they are sending more money to more needier school districts. Unfortunately for us, we're not necessarily a needy school district. The citizens of Batavia truly do step up and they make sure that our children have what they need. But you will see this year is kind of an anomaly, and I want to talk about that. So this is not really part of the financial forecast, but I want to take a little sidestep here. You'll notice that 2018, in terms of state funding, stands proud to the rest of the remaining years. And the reason for that is that the state of Illinois just changed their funding formula. And they enacted that legislation in, I want to say, like early to mid-September, right about when we were adopting our budget. And we, at that time, we really couldn't estimate what it was that we were going to receive. We just knew that it was probably going to be about what we always received. Well, they're changing some of the streams, and what were categorical funds that we receive reimbursements for, particularly for special education, but for some other streams that we receive reimbursements for, we were paid through our quarterly payments, what we call categoricals. Some of those now are baked into the basic state funding formula, and meaning they go away. And because the state of Illinois is notoriously late on paying its bills, we're receiving funds that were really due last year in this fiscal year. So we're going to get about $1 million more in this fiscal year than we would have otherwise expected because of this new formula. But it's a timing issue. It's not like we got more cash to work with every year. It's a one-time shot in the arm. Now, we had a discussion with our Resource Responsibility Advisory Council about what we should do with this essentially $1 million unanticipated surplus. And their recommendation is that we should put it in fund balance because we know we've got some pretty serious external threats that are looming, whether or not they come true or not. Over the long term, they probably will, but in the short term, it's probably unlikely.
Plus our fund balance is still low.
Plus our fund balance is low. And we have been able to make some improvements on fund balances in the last year, but it's still not enough. We expect that we'll be borrowing money come April and May to actually make payroll because we run out of cash at the end of the school year before our taxes actually come to our coffers. So that's the backstory on state funding. We hope that the board would agree that it would be prudent to take this one-time state funding revenue that we were owed, and it's just a tiny issue that we would put in a different balance. And then, of course, in 2019, it goes back down. We do expect a little bit more funding in 2019 and beyond because of the ALOP programs, and we do receive a little bit more money with those reimbursement programs coming online. So that does help, but it certainly doesn't come anywhere near covering the costs of what those programs occur, but they are excellent programs, and we're very excited to have them around that we do. Now, you'll notice that, the funding for salaries and benefits in terms of costs on the expenditure side mirror our staffing costs, and you can see that, actually in 2017, we spent just a little bit less in salaries than we did in 2016, and in 2018, just a little bit more in terms of salaries than in 2017, and we're being able to actually manage those costs, we have fewer staff. You can see that red bar that's there at the top of blue, that's benefit costs, and those continue to escalate. They take more and more of a budget. This year, at this point, when we're looking at our medical insurance costs, we're not having a good year. In fact, we're having a bad year. And we've had a series of bad years, and we're what appears to be in the midst of a really bad year. So we expect, the RAC committee council expects that we should anticipate benefit insurance costs to go up by 15% in 2019, which is crippling when your costs to when your revenues are only going up by 2%. And so what that means is we've been able to contain costs in all other areas of our budget pretty much to inflation, roughly that 2%, but medical insurance costs are far more than that 2%, and they're really starting to hurt. And we're going to be able to make it next year, but it's in the future years, and we're not very careful, and it's going to really become a problem. We have to rethink how we offer medical insurance benefits to our staff. We don't want to cut them, but we have to be very careful how we fund it. What else now do? This is our net fund balance. 2019 is a negative $350,000 roughly, almost $400,000. RAC recommends that we reduce 8 to 10 FTE overall, not teachers, but overall FTE. And we can do that because our enrollment continues to decline. We'll still be able to maintain average class sizes. It's at the same level that they are now. But that would put us in the black. But even after doing that in 2020, we'll see a deficit of at least another $1 million, and that compounding. Essentially, we're adding deficits of $1 million every year. So we can intervene in 2019 by reducing staff, but it doesn't mean that we're going to have to continue to intervene in years 2020 and beyond to make sure that we match our resources in terms of our consumption of resources with the growth of resources. And like I said, right now the greatest threat that we face in terms of finances is our medical insurance. Until we can contain that, this is the story.
We have to come up with a new model, don't we?
We have to come up with something. We have to do something different. It's 15% increases.
That's crazy.
We can't do that work. And this isn't a Batavia problem either. As you know, this is a healthcare.
Allow me to make a small pitch for socialized medicine at this point. Help save public education. Okay.
Just out of curiosity, is that 15% increase going to be larger than what we receive in general state aid?
No, in this particular year, you're talking about 2018?
Yeah.
So the extra $1 million?
No, the 15% increase, so we're looking at medical costs.
No, it won't be.
Okay, I mean, it just seems like, I'm looking at the bar graph, and it just looks like we're going to be close to that, because we only received, less than $5 million in general state aid, so for perspective on how much of the state is helping us relative to the concerns that we're facing, it's good to keep that perspective and help things relate.
In terms of new revenue that we expect to receive next year in 2019, it would be entirely consumed by medical insurance costs alone.
And that's no cost of living for anything else?
No, that's not right for anything else.
Okay.
All right. Any questions? Any questions about that?
Can we move the celebrations to the end next time?
Yeah. Can we bring them back? Quick, somebody make a call.
All right. Well, if we do not have any questions, then let's move on to a somewhat at least neutral topic of board meeting dates.
So you guys approved the calendar for the district back in December, and people all over the district are busy making plans for next year, putting dates in the calendar, etc. And so we thought we would get the head start on the board dates as well. We're not required by law to post them until the start of the fiscal year, but it would be nice to get them out as soon as possible so we could plan around them. I did put this out in the board book, and I had 2 board members had one suggestion slash concern. There was one concern that the gap between October 16th and November 20th was wide, 5 weeks. And then there was a different concern that one person preferred not to have it during Thanksgiving week. So one solution could be to move the November 20th date up to the 13th, and it would close that gap between October and November meeting.
Do we get a similar concern about November, December then?
Then there would be the 5-week gap between November and December, but we do have the Thanksgiving holiday in there, which kind of slows things down a little bit. But yeah, it's still there.
Do we need to vote on that or anything?
We should probably have consensus if we want to move that.
I would say consensus. So if I won't put them up publicly until closer to the end of the year, just because if we had a change of heart, we don't have to put them up until July 1st.
But it's just nice that we've pretty much decided we can plan around it.
And we all have things put on our calendars as well, and you can plan ahead.
I think that shifts is fine.
To the earlier in
Yeah, it solves two problems, right?
Earlier in November, okay? What?
I thought we discussed also, because this year we did that December meeting, the week of break, and I thought everyone was like, that didn't work. But I'm just talking out loud.
December 18th would not be the week of break.
No, it's the week of break.
No, December 18th is the week before break.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, never mind.
Okay.
And if we need to, we can always add a special if we need to.
Right, there, we have that. So is shifting that, John, would shifting that week, John Gaspar, I know this was one of your concerns. Would shifting a week earlier in November and then having that gap, but knowing there's a holiday week in there, allay your concerns?
That's fine.
Is this a football thing?
That's a good question. Very good.
Is that, okay, switch with you, John, driving. Bob, you said you were fine.
Well, I'm fine.
You're fine. All right, so we'll just shift that one date, but otherwise the calendar stands as is. All right, let's move on to the action portion of our agenda tonight. We're going to have Mark Anderson talk to us about health, life, safety, work bid. Exciting topic. We finally got someone who's willing to take our bid on our work.
Yeah, so this action item you have actually was tried last year to be bid out 2 different times and it wasn't. And so finally we have some responsible bidders, and you can see the one that I'm bringing towards Construction Solutions of Illinois for right around $442,000. This was also a very good bid as far as we could add things in the capital projects to get them done sooner. So this bid feels like it was forever ago, because it was. With how board meetings, you're just talking about how board meetings fell. This has actually been waiting for about 6 weeks now, just with how the timing has fallen. So I did bring this when I presented the capital projects plan, so you've seen this before. It is planned for, it is budgeted for, just looking for the approval tonight. So then I can give the approval to the Construction Solutions of Illinois, because they will, as soon as they get they will start ordering things to be started. Hopefully no snow days. I don't like to say that out loud, but I just did. So no snow days, and they can start right after Memorial Day. And completion would be by August 4th. We want to give enough time, really, with different teachers getting in the buildings and stuff. This will there's some pretty significant electrical work to be done at some elementaries, so I would like to get that done sooner than later.
And I know you said this was budgeted for, but as far as the specific number, this is actually lower than what we had anticipated. So provided there's not significant change orders,
right,
then we should be actually below budget.
Yes.
You're now our favorite presenter tonight.
Yeah, right. Below budget.
I don't know, somebody else gave us medals.
That's true.
It faded. Questions for Mark on the bid? Relatively straightforward.
Thanks, Mark.
Work the next required.
And this
to be done.
will complete all the 10-year health, life, safety work as well.
And now all the critical stuff that we need to have done in the district will be done until other stuff becomes critical.
Yes, as far as the 10-year health, life, safety, critical work.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have the priorities on our capital improvement list. This is
all the
last
safety
of
stuff.
all the one.
Right, the stuff that has been done.
Legally obligated.
Yes.
So we need a motion.
Yeah, I would entertain a motion to award the Construction Solutions of Illinois, Inc. a contract to complete the health and life safety work for the sum of $442,723.
Second.
Moved by Blakely, second by Lowe. Kathy, could you please call the roll?
Beaver,
Yes.
Blakely,
Yes.
Dryden,
Yes.
Gaspar,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
Dremel.
Yes. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have both Don Sewell and Lindsay Donata here tonight to talk about the approval of leases for multifunction devices. That sounds really riveting.
Before you start this, I just have a quick question for you. The devices, the copiers that we're replacing, are these the same ones that were in the building a couple years ago when it was still there?
Yeah, that have their own
The
Twitter.
large, heavy paperweights that,
Yes.
okay. Okay. For those of you not informed, these were the worst pieces of junk anyone devised since sliced orangutans. They made no sense.
Do they have the same ones at the elementary schools that they have at the high school?
Similar.
Okay. Then I'm familiar with them, yes.
They have their own Twitter
Yeah,
account.
give me some good news.
All right, go.
So a year ago, we decided we needed to address the situation with copiers, and there was a lot of dissatisfaction. I would say primarily at the high school, but definitely district-wide. So Lindsay and I were tasked with looking into it to see what kind of options we had, and so we started working with a consultant and started seeing that there was definitely room for improvement in the reliability piece to things. And then we also realized that there was definitely an opportunity to save some money. So as we were studying, we realized that we should probably, to get the maximum benefits, is issue an RFP, request for proposal, and we did that right at the beginning of the school year. And we got 11 responses back, and we quickly narrowed the field down to about 4, based on cost as a first perspective, and then functionality as a second. From those 4, we pretty much went down to 2 fairly quickly, and then spent the last couple months researching those 2 proposals. And again, it was based on, we tried to get them both to apples. It was based on cost, which was very important, but equally, or about equally as important, was reliability and functionality. So we spent quite a bit of time checking references from other districts. We made several site visits. We looked at their uptime and downtime, number of service calls, to get an idea on the reliability piece. And then we looked at cost options compared to what we currently spend to what we could spend in a new 3-year deal. And we finally got to a place, we were looking at, doing this sooner, but it took us a while till we were really comfortable with the right decision. I think we finally got there, and we are bringing this proposal to you. The other piece that we did is we went around to each building and had what we call the focus group with either building leadership or just a volunteer committee to explain the plan that we were looking at, address concerns that they may have had, and just collect feedback that we would take back to our thought process and potentially address with the vendors. And then we had several sessions. We joined the RAC meetings and shared where we were going, took their perspective on things that we either should consider, and I believe we did get the endorsement of the RAC group moving forward, and that's where we stand now. The one thing that we did as this evolved is we currently lease 26 copiers, and then we have over 100 older printers that Some are literally 20 years old. And as we've been studying this and learning about the industry, we discovered of these 100 printers that many people use, for all their printing. They don't print to the copy machines. The cost of those is about 8 or 9 times the cost of what a current efficient model would cost. And that...
The printing cost, that is.
Yes, the printing costs. And so that contributed to a lot of the potential cost savings that we're looking at. And as well as there are other features that are more modern, such as like a secure print, which adds a level of security, reduces waste from unwanted print jobs, and additionally this system would return the option to have students able to print from their Chromebooks that went away when they got them in 2014, I believe it was. So there's definitely some features, cost savings, reliability is much higher. Like actually two of the districts we spoke with, where they had twice the copiers that we are.
They had half the number of copiers that we had, you were right, I'm sorry, we had double the amount of copiers, UPS had double the amount of copiers, and twice as many service calls.
Because they didn't work, they were junk.
Service calls were a lot higher than...
They were junk.
So, and like when we were talking about the nature of their service calls, and they just said primarily they were preventative maintenance, that people just coming in to clean them up so they don't go down. And so I think, speaking for both of us, that we have a pretty high confidence that the reliability piece will be much higher, and it seems like a good opportunity to save some money as well.
I don't want to pick at you, Don. I just want to I want to know a couple of things. And as a teacher who taught reading first and foremost, whether I was a social studies teacher or not, it was always so important to me to have students be able to annotate readings, which meant they had to have their own copy. I mean, this was vital stuff, okay? And I know we got into a bad deal. And I know that we bought or leased some machines that were just horrible. They didn't work. And it often left not just myself, but many, many, many teachers frustrated, unable to fulfill the lesson plans that they wanted to do. I'm much less interested in cost than I am in reliability and function, and I would really like to know from you if, in the deal that we're about to do, if that's not the first concern, reliability and function, that's not the priority. If cost is a priority over reliability and function, I'm not interested. I would rather pay a little bit more, or even a lot more, and know that we're giving a tool to our teachers and our students that are gonna bloody work.
Can I jump in on this one since I was at a couple of those presentations? So at the RAC meeting, we've been probably, 3-4 presentations on printers alone. There's been tons of diligence done here. And just by the simple fact, and you guys can totally chime in here on this, the fact that technology has gotten so much better and more affordable, the fact that the reliability, even if it was just on even par with the price becomes a major factor anyway because it's just so much cheaper technology-wise. So, but I know that they primary test and the diligence they did with the focus groups and even with the RAC focusing, there's representatives from stakeholders from all over, and they really expressed, we got to do this right. It's got to be machines allocated in correct locations, reliability. The Twitter account came up a million times, so I think that was probably paramount, and the cost just happened to be an extra benefit because technology's got cheaper.
All right. Second question.
Oh, wait, you guys...
JJ Bender?
I was just going to say,
Go ahead.
it was also an RFP process, so vendors proposed a solution that they thought would work for us. It wasn't us telling them what we were looking for as in like a bid situation, so they looked at our usage and our volumes and told us what they thought would work best for us.
JJ Bender, which it says the current copiers were repurchased by JJ Bender for $22,000. Is this the Are these the people that we lease the copiers from? We're not buying back, I mean, we're not selling back.
No, that's a third party that Conica Minolta works with, so Conica Minolta isn't directly buying the machines, but they use that, they work with that company, and that company is purchasing them directly from us. It's not in the work.
God knows what they'll do with them.
Melt them down.
Any other questions?
What's the protocol on the copiers? What I mean by that is, can anybody in the building just go up to them and just use them, or are there certain requirements? When I was teaching, there were certain copiers no one was allowed to touch. I mean, it went right from your thing, and it was going to be less headaches, less damage. Sometimes it's going to be human error that's going to cause more problems with the machines than that. So I'm just wondering, what is the protocol on our copiers? I'm just...
So it can be whatever we want it to be, and we can assign some people to have access to some printers or copiers and others to not. We might choose, the building might choose to say that the students will not print to the color and only print to the black and white. It's, we haven't figured out all the details, so we can also allow, one of the things we talked about at the focus groups with the schools is either a parent who wants to help make copies, would they have access to make copies, and they would. And so we have a lot of control, we can make decisions, we can pretty much do it the way we choose to.
Any other questions?
But right now, we have an open system.
It's an open system.
Anyone can print anything, no matter how many pages.
Okay.
Except for kids, different from us. Except for kids.
Incredibly rigorous process, which we really appreciate. It's really nice to hear that RAC had presentations, that you looked at reliability, that you did focus groups, so that certainly makes this an easier decision. So I would entertain a motion to approve a 3-year lease, dollar buyout capital lease, 3-year $1 buyout capital lease with the American Capital for 46 Conica Minolta multifunction devices in the total amount of $304,673.76. And in addition, they're recommending that we approve the disposal of the 26 existing copiers for $22,000. So unless anyone has an objection, I'm going to request a motion that would approve both of those at the same time.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Beatty Bar, second by Lowe. Please call the roll.
Beatty Bar.
Yes.
Blakely.
Yes.
Dryden.
Yes.
Gaspar.
Yes.
Lowe.
Yes.
Dremmel.
Yes. Okay, now on to the policy portion of the
John,
evening.
do you want one of the old ones? Just
No.
Thank you, Don. Thanks again.
$850.
I think we should catapult them right back to the people that sold them to us.
Excellent plan. We'll put you on that committee, Jeff. In the meantime, we're going to talk about policy.
So the policy report, it is action tonight. You saw those first 11 policies last month, and most of them are based on press updates. If you have any questions about those 11, I can answer those now. And then those bottom 2, I do have 2 policies for a first reading. I'm going to go into just a little bit more detail in a minute, but let's talk about the first 11. If you had any questions on those.
Ready?
I'm ready.
Policy 7.
305.
305.
Okay. That is a policy about student athlete concussion. So there are many concussion protocols as the legislators are, helping to monitor these programs, and they're giving us some advice on what we need to do. And it is really good things that are happening as far as the protocol teams, where there is a team of professionals that design the protocols, and students aren't allowed to be returned to play without permission from a professional. And this policy is expanding who that professional is. Now a physician's assistant can also return a student to play or school.
Okay, so more of a rhetorical question, Lisa. I don't expect you to be able to answer this. But I'm going to throw this to the board, my fellow board members. I'm going to throw it to the community. And I'm going to ask a question that will make me horribly unpopular in the community.
You're going to have to take that man along.
Yeah. No, I'm going to wear the medal proudly because I so appreciate the achievements of our coaching staff and our students. But I'm going to ask a question as to why we engage. We have our students engage in activities where we know that they're more likely to be injured. When the state has to put down protocols for concussion and for allowing students to play after they've been concussed, etc., somebody has to ask a question. Why are we allowing our students to engage in activities that increases the likelihood of injury? We say that we put the student's interest before any other interest. And I'm going to make a statement that says, well, yes, mostly, but when we encourage students to participate in activities, sports activities and others, where we know there's a high incidence of injury, short-term and long-term, from broken bones to long-term brain injuries, I have to ask why we're doing it. And I don't expect my colleagues on the board or the administration or even the community to be able to answer me today, but I do think we have to start asking the questions about what our motivations are. And I will tell you that there will be a time going forward, next year, 5 years, 10 years from now, that this community will have to decide whether or not it will continue to ask our students to entertain us in such a manner. So while I will certainly vote yes on this policy to ensure that our students playing football or cheerleading or soccer, etc., have proper medical attention as they engage in these activities, I would like us to think as we go forward about why we're doing what we're doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Can we possibly put that in the parking lot for discussion, a board discussion later?
We'll put that in the parking lot.
Parking lot. Any other questions or comments on the policies? Then I would entertain a motion to adopt the revisions to policies 2260, 415, 4170, 520, 590, 5220, 650, 770, 7180, 7250, and 7305 as presented.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Dryden, second by Bo. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Katie Barr,
Yes.
Blakely,
Yes.
Dryden,
Yes.
Gaspar,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
Drell.
Yes. All right, new policies.
Thank you. We have two policies that, these are not, we get a press publication 4 times a year, and that tells us, hey, you should look at these policies, and these two did not come from that update. They came from local requests, basically. So the first one I'm going to talk about, and it's administering medicine to students. There is a press policy that allows for the district to have an undesignated EpiPen, an auto injector for epinephrine,
Yes, not an
not
EpiPen.
the brand name, so that our nursing staff can use that as they see fit if the need arises. And we have adopted that press policy, but there is a second part of that policy that says that we can also have a Narcan, which is the name brand drug for to counteract the effects of an opioid overdose. And schools around us have adopted this, and we just have never adopted the policy to go along with it. We were contacted by a community member that's raising a larger community question about this and wanted to help us to make this happen, and we said, it's time, we will make this happen, and he's continuing on with his awareness and his advocacy throughout the community, but we are taking care of our part of it. I met with Lisa Palisi, I met with our nurse, our certified nurse, and Joanne Smith. We talked about how we're gonna make this happen. So the policy basically states that we would have this opioid inhibitor and in the nurse's office. Currently our police liaison carries it, and the nursing staff, the athletic trainer, and the administration will all be trained in it. It's a very simple training, and there's not any damage that can be done if it's given to the somebody who's not exhibiting or who doesn't have opioids in their system. There's no negative side effects at all to that. So the policy would allow us to have those on file or in the nurse's office, and allow us to use them at our in case of an emergency. Questions about that policy, or that? Do you have?
We have the police officer on campus now has one.
All the police officers carry those, yes.
So we would be moving management of that from the liaison officer to the nurse.
Or in addition.
So
he would have the.
Okay, so we'd be adding the total number on campus.
Yes.
And then
Have one in
expanding
every.
the training.
Have one in every building, because obviously we're not thinking that a student at an elementary school would need it, but we do have people that use the buildings in the evenings, and we have an administrator that's there, and if they felt the need for it.
And I believe that our police officers have used it, I believe, 5 times in the last couple of months.
In this city, not at that school.
Yeah, not in our building.
Yeah, not in our schools.
It is not
In our community, just so that people know, yeah.
It is not
in our schools.
It is not.
Oh, has not.
It is not. No, but there was an article in the paper this week.
Yeah, it was in the paper, which is where I got that information.
Right.
That in
About
our
the community.
It has been used, so there is a need out there, potential need.
So Lori Carbonell will be working in the county to obtain the Narcan through some grants. There's many different organizations that are willing to help people to help make this happen. So it won't be a high cost if there is a cost. She's a certified trainer, so she will train the administrators. I believe the athletic trainers are also already trained, and our building nurses are already trained, so it's just a matter of training the administrators, and Lori Carbonell can oversee that. So I'll bring that back unless you have any comments right now, or you don't want to go in that direction.
My only comment is I think we need to remove EpiPen reference from everywhere in there. They tend to gouge all of their clients, and there are other auto injectors also on the market, such as Avicu, who will provide it for free to anybody who needs it.
I will, yeah, we're definitely, thank you for pointing that out. The press cleaned up their policy to remove the name brand, and we'll do that as well. Everywhere.
Auto injectors?
Epinephrine auto injector. Then the second policy actually came an idea that we heard from you. So I'm going to call Joanne to talk about the student travel policy and her recommended, what she's been working on, I guess.
Thank you. So the purpose of bringing this policy to you is to get your feedback, because we've heard some concerns over the years with the student travel, which seems we bring those to you, I'll be honest, randomly as we get them. It's not on a schedule of any kind. And we've heard some concerns on your part that those kind of come late in the game. And with the way the policy is currently written, it requires such a level of detail that's why they often come to you so late in the game, is because we're gathering all those details about travel and dates and the names of chaperones and you name it. And so that level of detail is part of the reason why those came to you so late in the game. So we're trying to flip the process a little bit. So the board is really providing that the guidance and the criteria, and giving us the permission to then get that level of detail, and that those more detail, those later details would come to the administration. So I have a few notes here I was going to walk you through. So this policy has 3 types of different field trips. I'm really going to talk to you most about the education trips, which is that second part of the policy. And then the exhibit number 2 is really what we're changing the most. There's some minor language changes in other parts, With the education trips, that's kind of the biggest part of the change. And so let me kind of summarize this because it is such a different procedure than we've used in the past. So what we'd be asking, and I love your feedback tonight, is that in each October, at the October board meeting, I or any administrator in the district would bring you all of the known travel for the school year. And again, it would be those high level of details. And so you can see in the exhibit and in the policy what we would be bringing to you. It's not as much detail as we brought you in the past, but you would get all of those known travel trips in October instead of getting one here, one there all throughout the year. So I know even I feel like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm bringing them another travel every month, and it's just constant, and I'm sure it's frustrating for you too. So we're trying to systematize this a little bit more so it's you guys can kind of see the big picture all at once and see, okay, oh, there's 6 trips this year versus I feel like we're always sending students on trips. So that's kind of the purpose, is to sort of flip it. So you're really giving the approval. You're not, I know I've heard the words rubber stamp. We feel like we're rubber stamping it at the end when they've already done all the work, and we'd be flipping it. So you're giving us the approval to move forward with all the details. I think I'll stop there and take questions, and then if we can go into more detail if needed.
Well, my concern was what you had just said. But will you always know by October 1st something that might take place in March? Now, I know there's some annual trips that happen all the time, same weekend, whatever. There's some that might switch. So I'm just wondering if that's really feasible to bring it to us like that, or say a few months out.
Sure.
I don't have a problem with, but I'm just trying to figure out. I know, and sometimes there could be a last minute thing, so I'm just throwing a lot of things out here at times. But the one thing, when you had said you'd bring us an idea of what's going to be out there, would it just be that we're going to the key clubs going here at the international thing overnight? Would it have anything on the dates at least, and the cost and so on like that? Or are you just going to give us the big, here's the weekend?
So if you look at Exhibit 2, I think this might help answer a couple of your questions, and then I'll go into more detail too. That
Okay.
Phase 1, there's a chart there, that is what we would bring the boards. We would bring the name of the group, the school, the sponsor, the tentative dates, the number of school days missed, and the rationale. That would all come to you in the October board meeting, along with the assurances that our students are being
There's
safe.
assurances under cost there at the bottom of that page. It says cost.
Okay. Because that was one of my big things on cost on some of these that, and the other big one was, and I had talked to Lisa on, and she gave me a chart on some of the annual trips, but how many kids might go into 2 or 3 of those. So now they're missing not just the one day, they're missing really 4 days, because they're with this group, and then they're with that group, and with that group. And I'm not counting, I'm sorry.
And that can certainly happen. We just have
Right.
students that are very, as you saw, students tonight that are very involved in multiple areas. If we ever, we don't necessarily keep a chart of every student, all 2,000 students, and how many field trips they've taken. But if there is ever a concern about a certain subset of students that we feel like travel too much, we can always pull that data very easily from Power School. We code field trips differently than an absence for being sick or vacation, things like that. So we can easily pull the number of field trips that per student or per grade level, or any kind of combination that you can think of. And you asked one other question I want to make sure I answered. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it was just the fact that you might have somebody within, and then they'll be missing more than maybe the number of days we thought they should miss. Which I think it was 5 or something like that. And I think by the chart that Lisa had given me, I don't think, someone would almost have to be in 5 different categories to miss the 5 days. I think there was only one that might have been a couple of days.
Right.
And I'm not trying to sit up here and say I'm against field trip. I'm for them if they're very educational and it's going to be a purpose for the students.
And I think the guidelines that are in the actual policy that we're asking you guys feedback on and to get to approve would be that level of detail of
Okay.
field trip has an educational value. It's aligned to our district strategic goal and so on. John also has a question about what if we don't know by October 1st?
Right.
That happens, for example, this Friday, the band is going to the IMBC, the Illinois Music Educators Conference, and they would not have known that in,
Right.
say, August.
Okay.
That's going to happen, but I think if we make this system in a structure, we're gonna get a bulk of those field trips done in October, and we might bring you one or two more throughout the school year, but it's not going to be like it is now where it almost feels like one every single month.
Okay, and I'm fine with
Yeah.
that. I'm fine with that.
And
That's the plan.
it is a side note in the policy, but all IHSA sponsored, like, for example, state, like the dance team going to the state dance competitions, that's not part of this policy, they're exempt from
But
this.
that's when I stopped, I was thinking of sports stuff, because I
Yeah.
know that, you never know.
Until that.
Who's gonna go in
Right,
advance,
it was
you know?
right, we couldn't wait for board approval on
So,
those
okay.
trips.
Thank you.
And just for clarification, all the insurances, that does not come back to the board. That's just verified by the local administrator?
Right, so those assurances are being made before phase one, before they're brought to you.
Right, but
in October.
in order to verify that those assurances are met, they have to submit those to you, I believe it's 30 days beforehand, or whatever building they're at.
Right. Right, for most
And
of
then, if there's any of the assurances are not met, then I would assume that you guys would address that at the building level.
Yes.
And then we would not see that again.
Yes.
Unless, I suppose, a trip got canceled, then I imagine we would hear about it.
Exactly. There are a couple other minor language changes in the policy. They're in red, but I'm not sure that if you guys have any questions about those. The major one being the excursion tours. Those are the trips that are not aligned with, they're not sponsored by Batavia Public Schools. It's just letting the sponsor know, or the person that's going with, that they need to provide us with an itinerary about a week in advance. Even though we're not sponsoring the trip, our students are going, and we'd like to know.
You're talking about like Spanish kids going.
Yes.
Right.
All right, I will bring both those back next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jan. All right. We have all of the action portion of our agenda tonight. We'll move on to staff comments, staff and board comments. We do have closed session tonight, so Dr. Hitchens, you can start us.
One item of business that I forgot to say during my, when we were talking about the calendar dates. So when we created this year's calendar, we said it's always easier to cancel a meeting than add a meeting. And I think we have a situation here in February where we have 2 meetings scheduled, and our calendar of events, when we present things to the board, we try to bring you our information when it's ready. So in February, you were supposed to hear the capital projects presentation. You were supposed to have the 5-year financial forecast presented to you, but you've heard both of those. So I'm not seeing the need for 2 meetings in February. I mean, so far, our major item on the February agenda is to hear the second reading of these policies. So to have 2 February meetings, I don't think we need them. So what are your thoughts on that?
Is that something that we could decide after the first February meeting?
Well, we
It's the
would
first
keep
one
the
we
second one
cancel.
Oh,
because
that's
the
the one we
second one is
cancel.
after the bills have
When's
been
the first
run.
one supposed to be?
February 6th
6th and
is the,
20th.
February 6th is the, yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay with skipping the 6th, so I can travel that week too.
6th.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, there's no business. We don't have to do anything, right? You just need to,
I don't think we have
We should
to,
probably take it off the website.
we'll take it off the website and.
but there's no vote needed.
Right, and I'll take it off the board docs. No one sees
Right,
that.
you can always not meet, you just can't, there's more regulations to add a meeting,
Right.
to subtract a meeting, we'll make sure we cover it. And then, administration comments, I would just say this meeting was really good evidence about why it's great to be a student in Batavia. There are so many adults that are so passionate about making sure that they're supported and that they're learning and growing and being well cared for, and I just think that it's a special place and that the students are very lucky to have all these adults around them that are supporting them.
I like that comment. All right, Jen Gaspar, did you have, actually, I'm going to just call out because we had a chance to report on our committees. If people want to make any personal comments, share any personal things, I know I call on you and sometimes you feel like you have to speak if you don't have anything. So I'm going to throw it out and you can speak if you have anything you need to add.
Well, I'll add, one thing, just a reminder and follow up on the from the board thing at the beginning, which I didn't say anything, but you have about 8 more days to get in your nominations for the Hall of Honor.
That's your committee report. You can't say it.
I'll say when I want to. Thank you to Lisa and to Kathy for always meeting with me and getting things done, and Tony for jumping in there every once in a while, whoever I see. And I just, the question, you answer them all. The comments from the board members, I appreciate listening to those. It always gets your mind thinking again on something else. Everybody is passionate about everything here, and that's why we live in this town and for the education. And it was great to see the football players, but it was also great about the early childhood group. I had asked Lisa, I said, were any of the small kids coming? And I said, because if they were, I said, you better switch that around. You better let the small ones go first, because they might get overwhelmed, but it would have been fun. But I think it all worked out. And just thank you for everything, and just have a good week.
All right, anyone else have comments before we go to closed session?
Yeah, really quick. We do grow great kids in this community. I do dig that. It's always awesome to have them come to meetings. Positive thing was that I'm learning that there are conversations that can happen, and thank you so much for illuminating a possible solution in a quick, less than 20-minute window, that just conversations need to happen. I will say I am a little bit disappointed, and this is my private sector experience kind of getting layered on top of this. I would never have an opportunity to speak to my board of directors as an employee. And if I did have that opportunity to speak to my board of directors as an employee, I would remain seated in the room to listen to hear what the board of directors had to say in response. So if you could pass that message along, that is actually very disappointing for me. Thanks.
Thanks, Bob. Anyone else? All right, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn the closed session to discuss collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. There will not be action after closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Gaspar, second by Lowe. Kathy, could you please call the roll?
Baker.
I'm here.
Blakely.
Yep.
Drummond.
Yes.
Dryden.
Aye.
Gaspar.
Yes.
Lowe.
Yes.